What's up, desktopers? Xavier Wills here for Desktop Bodybuilding, and we are back with another video, and we've got another physique update from Big Ramy. As you can see on the screen right now, we're going to be comparing Big Ramy from the 2021 Mr Olympia to Nick Walker from the 2021 Arnold Classic, which was just a week or two prior to that Mr Olympia. Now, before we get into that comparison, I wanted to feature these latest physique updates. And Big Ramy, as you can see on the screen right now, looking absolutely outrageous. Also, before I get fully into this one, we do have a poll up as well. So make sure you check that out and vote on that if you are watching this live. And I can see you guys in the comments as well. So we've got Daniel Wim says Xavier, that's me. Massage Gun 56 says one is a mirror selfie update and angle favoring his needs. Other one is a solid straight on video showing insanity. Obviously, everyone knows mirror images are skewed 100%. We're only comparing these, I suppose, physique updates a little bit now, but we're going to be comparing last year's versions. And we're not comparing. Kara says, bro, don't compare a mirror selfie to a solid physique update. We all look good on mirror. Haha. Yeah, 100%. But I wanted to feature these physique updates and compare last year versions of not the Mr Olympia, because Nick Walker placed 5th and Big Ramy won the Mr Olympia last year. So obviously Big Ramy was better on that stage, but we're going to go over how Nick Walker looked at the 2021 Arnold Classic and how much better that was, or if it was better than his 2021 Mr Olympia version. But also we're going to sort of try to analyze what's going to, I suppose, be ahead for these guys at the 2022 Mr Olympia. Now, Nick Walker in this latest physique update, obviously absolutely crazy. I'll go back over him later as well and really analyze Big Ramy's physique update. But you can see here just the mass and obviously the angles. We've seen it with Pittsburgh Pro guest posing. Nick Walker's waist doesn't look this small when actually doing, a guest posing and going over it in that way when it's, straight on angle. But it's good to see his waist does look small in this, because you can only sort of angle it so much to make your waist look so small. So I'm glad that Nick Walker obviously takes that in consideration. If he can add the mass that I suppose it appears he's added to his physique by these recent physique updates, then he's going to be very dangerous. And as you can see in this video here, his arms, like we said it last year, you cannot add much more mass to his arms, because like you can see how far he has to contract. Like he has to really swing his arm around to try to get the contraction. It's pretty much only just above 90 degrees. So he has a ton of muscle on those arms. He can't really add or do much more with them, really, but he seems to keep improving them. So they definitely are a freaky body part for Nick Walker. And I think he can out-arm Big Ramy. And Ramy still has some pretty damn impressive arms. But it's the rest of the physique where we'll be obviously judging this, and it's the whole physique as well. So Nick is starting to skip head day. That's what Red Loop says. Yeah, Nick's head is tiny compared to the rest of his body. But yeah, looking absolutely ridiculous. So I cannot wait to see what Nick Walker does on the Mr Olympia stage in 2022. And people sort of question it a little bit as well, because obviously switching coaches during his prep sort of does lead some people to doubt what he might bring in 2022. The fact that maybe, he switched for a reason. Maybe he hadn't made the progress he wanted to, but by the physique updates, it looks like he has. And he's looking absolutely insane. But Big Ramy, let's analyze his physique update a little bit more. So as he goes through this, we'll analyze pose for pose how he looks before we compare him to Nick Walker. Quarter turn's solid, like waist is tiny. Back pose, this is where I think people think Ramy can be exposed here. And yeah, it's not quite as wide. I mean, I think he had it slightly contracted. We'll just go back to that a little bit. So he's not really opening it up well there by the looks of it. So he's maybe will have some issues. So that could be one point where Ramy could actually have an issue, is opening that back up far enough. But it still is an impressive pose. But his delts look crazy on that. His delts almost overwhelm his back to me. But it's still, if that's his weak pose, it's a pretty impressive weak pose. Damn impressive quarter turn once again. He's good from both sides there. Now, this shot, this front double bicep has looked crazy in his recent physique updates. Like, look at that. That is tremendous. Like, he's not pulling the vacuum like he did on stage last year, which we'll see when we compare the 2021 version of Big Ramy to the 2021 version of Nick Walker. But his waist is still tight. His abs are on. His arms look absolutely insane. And that's really Nick Walker's strong point. But it looks like it's really one of Ramy's strong points as well. So absolutely insane there from Big Ramy. But let's watch on as he goes through these other poses. Now, something everyone will be keeping an eye on is the delts as well, because obviously it was a big topic. And I don't know if we made a big deal of, again, you guys let me know what you think in the comments about his delts in this photo. Is there any sort of weirdness going on? If it is, I think it's literally just where he's put his shots, you know. But you can see from a slightly different angle when he actually crunches down on those abs. He did it at the Olympia last year as well. It goes like that. Which lat spread do you guys prefer? Let me know if you think that's better, or if you think, obviously different lighting, well, that's better. I wish Big Ramy would do that, but actually lean forward, because when he does that one, he leans right back. He can actually push his hips back and just sort of tilt his upper body forward a bit, where I think from a judge's perspective, it would look, I think, a lot better. But Big Ramy is, yeah, apparently 325 pounds and looking unbeatable, honestly. It's pretty crazy. How much do you guys, let me know in the comments, how much do you guys think Big Ramy will weigh on stage? Side chest looks really, really good. Not as mind-blowing, but the fact that he's this sort of weight and that's this sort of condition, like, look at that. Like, Big Ramy, does he even get that on the Olympia stage? That sort of detail through his back? I mean, it's thereabouts. So he's not far off, and much heavier as well than last year. Look at that. That back double bicep, I think, is definitely improved as well. And we're seeing, once again, when he does that back double, you can see just a little bit of detail. See, as he's coming out of that pose. I don't know if you guys can pick that up. You can see the detail on his lower back as he comes out of it. So that's pretty impressive. As he comes back into it again, you can see the detail. Just back lat spread, crazy. Red Loop says 312 pounds on stage, he thinks. Look at these most musculars. They are insane. Just absolutely crazy. And we're on to Nick Walker now. But you can see, just as he hits that most muscular, that is absolutely next level. So Big Ramy is going to be damn hard to beat. We're going to compare the Big Ramy from the 2021 Mr Olympia to the Nick Walker from the 2021 Arnold Classic, which was a few weeks prior, I believe, just last year. So let's get into this, and I'll skip forward to that. Hopefully you guys appreciate the larger images on the screen. Let me know in the comments if you do like that as well, either live or after we watch this video. So front double bicep from last year's Mr Olympia. Big Ramy hitting it completely different to how he's hitting it in these current physique updates. Maybe because he's bigger, maybe because he's just grown a bit. Will Big Ramy's stomach be as tight as normal? It looks fine as he goes through all those other poses this far out from the Olympia, so I don't think it's going to be an issue for Big Ramy. But the front double bicep is an impressive pose for Nick Walker. Yeah, it doesn't flow like Big Ramy's. There's no denying that, but it's very impactful. So when Nick Walker hits that side by side next to Big Ramy on stage, his abs will be popping. Big Ramy's obviously will be shock factor midsection wise, just because he's that sort of weight and pulling that vacuum, if he pulls that vacuum on stage. So it will be interesting to see this, hopefully side by side of the 2022 Mr Olympia. But yeah, Nick Walker, very crazy on that one, but you got to give it to Big Ramy. He's got more, I suppose, more just overall structure and shape. If you just sort of cut that shape out, Big Ramy looks crazy. Yeah, Nick Walker has some details and sort of, you know, crazy arms, but Big Ramy also has crazy arms. So this pose goes to Big Ramy. So we're one pose to none to Big Ramy right now. Let's move to, there's the front lat spread's rough on Nick Walker, but I just sort of wanted to demonstrate he's not 100% in this pose, I don't think, and it sort of makes it look, with the light on it, like his stomach's really sticking out, when I don't think it actually is, or he's just breathed out. So I didn't actually get the same sort of quality photo, because Nick Walker, I don't think, hit one at the Arnold Classic individually. So on this one, I've got to give it to Big Ramy, but Nick Walker is very crazy through the arms and shoulders on this pose. Like, it actually looks a lot crazier, I think, when you see him sort of next to other guys, and this is not the best photo of Nick Walker hitting a front lat spread. So I will give it to Big Ramy regardless, but Nick Walker is not blown out as long as he can pull his lats out on that pose, because he did have some issues with the lat spread at one stage, but I think he sort of figured that out. As we move on, side chest. Let me know what you guys think as we go through these poses as well. Now, this is where I think Big Ramy sort of hurt himself a little bit last year. He's like right down on that leg, brings out great detail on his legs, but I think he can get the same detail standing a little bit taller, because when Big Ramy did this on stage next to Brandon Curry, it made him the same height. or maybe even a little bit taller because he's bending down so much. And Brandon was winning those side shots, like the side tricep. I think Brandon easily beat Big Ramy last year. The side chest for Big Ramy is so impressive because of that side leg. So I've got to say, I've got to give this one to Big Ramy here as well. But Nick Walker is challenging. And I think with improvements, and hopefully Nick can get even more detail through here, just more separation, actually. He's got a ton of detail. It's just more separation with more thickness on the legs, on the outer sweep as well. And you can bring that in really good there and just become, another year or year and a bit of just overall detail through this upper body, just hopefully chiseling it out and coming in all-time best condition with enough fullness, working under Matt Jansen once again. I mean, we've got to remember Nick has made some crazy improvements show to show, and he's had a long time off the stage too since last year's Mr. Olympia. So it's safe to say we can sort of expect big improvements from Nick Walker for 2022 Mr. Olympia. But let's move on. So far I have Big Ramy winning all three of those first poses. And then we move to the back double bicep where it gets much more interesting. And I actually have the first win here for Nick Walker. I think it's very close though still, even though Big Ramy doesn't have the full, like you look at the back on Big Ramy and it sort of ends here. There's not a lot down here. There wasn't a huge amount of detail last year, but what we're seeing in the recent physique updates from Big Ramy is lines going through here and across here. We didn't see that so much last year from memory. I mean, Big Ramy's still in great condition though. I mean, we never used to see this from Big Ramy, and everyone sort of talks negatively about that Mr. Olympia, last year's Mr. Olympia for Big Ramy. He was still pretty damn good. For not great lighting to have this sort of lines through your glutes on Big Ramy, it's still very impressive. So a full year of training, or over a year from last year's Mr. Olympia, he should be unbeatable. But there's never that sort of situation in bodybuilding. We've seen it before where we are sure guys are going to win Mr. Olympias or win certain contests. Everyone knew Ronnie was going to win his ninth Mr. Olympia. It was almost a done deal. And, Lee Haney was there to give him the trophy, give him that Sandow, and then it never happened. So I think Nick Walker can be that man potentially, just to add a crazy amount of mass, more than we think, when he stands next to other guys and shock the world. Could it well happen? Am I predicting Nick Walker to win the Mr. Olympia in 2022? No, but you never know. It could be one of those freak stories. And this back double bicep sort of shows why, because his hamstrings, glutes, and everything get absolutely dug out. It's a lower quality image there for Nick as well. So it's, I think there'd be more sort of detail if we could see that image in full quality too. Anyway, let's move on. There was no rear lat spread too. And I think that would be close-ish, but I would give that one to Big Ramy because he's too wide. So I have Nick Walker winning 1 out of 5 poses so far. And that's to be expected. It's not like, you win by a certain amount. Everyone can win by a little bit. Swag King's asking me, where's the hat? Yeah, I normally wear a hat in my videos, so I probably look completely different here. And it's unfortunate because I'm getting gray on the side of my hair as well. So that's why I wear caps so much. Anyway, let's move on. Side tricep. This one is not Nick Walker's strongest pose, but it depends how you look at it. I mean, it is pretty impressive. Like everyone sort of said it wasn't his best pose, but it is pretty damn good. I will still give it to Big Ramy because he has that side leg involved in this shot. I think Nick is drier overall, I'd say, especially in those legs. Maybe upper body is pretty comparable dryness-wise. Maybe even Big Ramy's drier in his upper body. But I would say I'd give this to Big Ramy because it is a really aesthetic pose for a massive dude. I think the height difference would make a big difference, but I think he's bending down a fair bit too on this one. So that's why I've sort of got them as similar heights in this one, with Big Ramy just being slightly taller in that one by only about an inch, because I think the amount he bends down to how tall Nick Walker's standing, I think sort of balances out in that one. But I think maybe I've actually done Nick Walker a disservice here, potentially. But I'll give that one to Big Ramy as well. But these are shots where if Nick Walker improves a lot, that 10% better Big Ramy could become, a victory for Nick Walker if he improves enough. Now, this is another one this one's tough. I'll talk through it. So upper body wise, I think Nick Walker cleans up Big Ramy easily on this pose. It's an ab and thigh. Nick Walker's abs are so crazy there. And the fact that his waist really sort of does come in, you can see around the hips here. I mean, for Nick Walker, like that's where you're meant to wear your trunks, but it'd almost be cool to be able to actually see that cut in even more so. But I think that actually looks pretty damn good. If you could bring this in even more potentially, or just add more mass out here and keep that the same, if you can get even more of that V, I think it would look even crazier. But that's very impressive upper body wise. it's obviously up to preference if you like this sort of shape and this sort of look with those really thick, dense abs, but it does grab your eye on stage regardless. Big Ramy, he sort of goes down and then he hits here and then his physique sort of goes straight there. So I prefer the look of Nick Walker on this one over, even though overall I'd say Big Ramy is more aesthetic, I would say probably, with neither guy being super aesthetic dudes. I think Big Ramy for his size is very aesthetic. But he just doesn't look at on this pose in particular. But from the quads, I'd say Big Ramy, his quads are crazy. Now, people have brought up about the sort of this lump looking area, and it seems to cut in on his outer quad on both sides. So I don't know what's happened there, if that's just with maturity to the muscle, if it's the shots around there and it's sort of caused something, but it almost does look like it goes in, or it's just the fact there's a bit of a lump there and maybe something atrophied around there. Not too sure, but it's not that big of a factor for me compared to like a Hardy's delts, but everyone has a preference and everyone has an opinion on that. So this one for me is very, very close. I would say Nick Walker because I think those abs will just grab you so much on stage. He's hitting the pose a lot better. Had Big Ramy hit this pose differently with his head pulled back more, if he can do that with his body, if he's I suppose flexible enough, I would give it to Big Ramy, but I'd say narrowly giving this pose to Nick Walker. And then we move into the most muscular, which is also an interesting one. So I think the pose that Big Ramy wins, he wins by a larger margin. But on this particular most muscular, I would give it to Nick Walker. Now, there was another most muscular with one hand on Ramy's hip and the other hand in, and Nick Walker does that same pose. I'd give that one to Big Ramy. So this one I have as a tie, but the one you're seeing on the screen right now, I'd have Nick Walker winning. And I may have actually made Nick Walker too actual big in this pose, but just I think that shot for Nick is so impressive. So I'd have Nick winning 2.5 poses out of, what is it, 8? Something like that. So it's actually pretty good. I think Big Ramy wins some poses by a decent margin. So I think even if Nick is improved, I think there's still going to be some poses that Big Ramy wins. But there's enough poses there for Nick Walker if he makes crazy improvements. If Ramy stays the same or maybe regresses slightly, just say Big Ramy stayed the same. Just say he came in exactly the same as he came in at last year's Mr. Olympia, and Nick Walker makes crazy improvements, then Nick Walker can do it. And I mean, everyone's saying that it's such an impressive Olympia, which it is. It is a crazy impressive Olympia. I'll go back to the physique updates as well for those just joining, and if you guys would probably prefer to watch that. But if Nick Walker can make those improvements, and everyone else that we're hyping up and talking about, like Hunter, like all these other guys, just come in not quite as good as Big Ramy at last year's Olympia, and Nick Walker is crazy, you never know. It could happen. And I think there's going to be guys that I predict between 6th and 10th that are going to be Mr. Olympia contenders. I kid you not. I think there's 7 guys or so that can win the Olympia this year. And I might even do a video. If you guys are interested, let me know in the comments now. Would you like to see me do a video on every guy that I think can potentially win the 2022 Mr. Olympia? Because it always can be the case of where Big Ramy does come in off. And I will go to your guys' questions in just a moment as well. So let me know your questions now. I know there's a bunch here as well that I'll sort of go through. Trying to sift through. I think we have Austrian Powers in the comments as well. I did see a message from you today, dude. But I have had my kids, so I've been busy. Kevin Clement says, hi, Xavier, finally caught another live. I can't wait until Mr. O's here. I can't wait either. It's going to be crazy. JD Shahan says, will be 300 after Chad water manipulation protocol. Lol. Yeah, well, I think Ramy on stage last year was actually, I think, below 290. I'm pretty sure it was, or close to maybe even to 280 from memory. But I think that when he got on the scales, I think he was over 300 pounds or something at that press conference. But obviously he lost water and not wearing big shoes and clothes and all that sort of stuff. So Steve Stokes says, not even close. Nick will never get a chance to stand beside Ramy ever. Ramy is in a different league. I think we'll get a chance to stand beside Big Ramy. Xavier rocking the C-bum hairstyle. Blake Yoppa says, Ramy is so much dicker, man. Look at Ramy bicep from the side. Yeah, he is crazy. What's up, Swag King? Ramy's side leg perfect. Yeah, it is pretty damn impressive. JD Shahan says Nick will never beat Ramy. He doesn't have the shape. He is shorter too. It's going to be hard for him to beat Labrada as well. Also, guys, vote in the poll that's on the live right now, and I'll share the results. And if you are watching this later, which most of you guys are, let me know in the comments. Let me know who you think will win at the 2022 Mr. Olympia. And if you think Nick has any chance against Big Ramy, because the narrative earlier in the year was that Nick Walker could win, or many guys were saying Walker Nation, Nick Walker is going to win the 2022 Mr. Olympia. Just wait and see. Ramy won't do it, but everyone is so freaked out and so impressed for good reason about Big Ramy's recent physique updates. People have changed their tune. Like the overall bodybuilding fan perspective has definitely changed, but we are quick to forget that Nick Walker is a crazy bodybuilder, so anything can happen. Yeah, here we go. Austrian Power says you should have asked who the people prefer or who should win, because the way you asked, I picked Ramy because I think they won't let Walker win. Good point, man. Good point. I was actually wondering if to ask who you thought won in these physiques that's on the screen right now, or if to actually ask who you think would win or who you would want to win Mr. Olympia in 2022. I've got to ask some of those questions, actually. I'll do it on my YouTube community tab. And you guys can let me know there. That'd be cool. Jumbai says, what a silly comparison. At this point, there is no way Nick can beat Ramy. No, it's more a comparison just to see, I suppose, where Nick can potentially beat Big Ramy on certain shots now and in the future. Does he win any of these shots? And he did. I had him winning a couple, or at least being close on a couple. Fikret, oh man, I'm not going to try to pronounce your last name. Olympia 2022, first Big Ramy, second Andrew Jack, third Samson Dowder. What a shock that would be. That would really change things up to future Olympias as well. It'd be crazy. Silver Fox says Ramy's bringing a look that compete at and contend against Ronnie 03. That would be crazy. We have to see something a lot better than this one on the left right now. I got to tell you. Swag King says Ian is going to win the O, lights out. Ian Valier, that would be huge. And then he said, not. That's funny, man. Here we go. Derek Farnsworth in the comments, IFBB Pro Mr. Olympia competitor says, do a comparison on Samson Dowder and Andrew Jack. Yeah, I actually literally have that written down to do on my notes. I bring up my notes now, but just in case there's something written down there that I don't want people to see, I don't want to show it. Very good point from Austrian Powers. Said it could be a Ronnie Coleman year where someone from the back like Samson wins. Man, it would be so cool to see something like that. I would love to see an epic Olympia where we have just a crazy story. I can't wait to do a video like the pre-judging wrap up. Like it's going to be awesome. I'm going to do that live on this channel as well. So guys, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell button so you don't miss out on that. And Austin Prowse also says Nick was robbed. He should have beat Labrada easily. Many people have that opinion. It is the consensus online from last year's Mr. Olympia. Amit Rosenberg says, what does Nick have to change in his execution of the front lat spread? I think that it's hard to say because everyone's a little bit different. I actually teach posing as well and have done for like many years. When you hit a front lat spread, it's like, it's about, you got to pull those elbows around while keeping the shoulders back, but not people, a lot of the time, even Big Ramy does it where you lean right back and then you're putting your waist forward. I think for Nick Walker, he needs to really push his butt back when he does it and do it and still pull up into it, but keep the shoulders and chest forward, and it'll make your shoulders and chest appear wider and that waist to appear smaller. I think sometimes some of these guys push their waist forward a little bit when going into it because they're pulling their hands from the back and they naturally just push up into it. So I think that's one thing that Nick could improve on, and also Big Ramy could improve on for the 2022 Mr. Olympia. Most exciting Olympia in years, no doubt. Austrian Powers, the Dowder versus Jacked won't be accurate because you have a 2021 versus a 2022 comparison when Dowder obviously packed on a shit ton of meat, 100%. It wouldn't be fair, but I'd like to see the comparison anyway, and I will do that comparison, and I will compare their most recent physique updates as well. Might even wait till Samson puts out a physique update, or Andrew does or something, and then feature that in the video as well. Compared Derek Lunsford with Hunter Labrada. I'm going to do that for sure. It's going to suck though, because it's going to be so hard to actually get an accurate comparison, because I think Derek is going to be so much bigger and it's going to be a completely different Derek. But I will do that sort of comparison as well. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for getting in the comments. It's much appreciated. People ask about the floods in Victoria. It's crazy. You're in WA. I'm in Tasmania now. There's actually floods down here, but to be honest, I've been so busy in life that I didn't actually keep up with it. But to everyone that's struggling, I'm sure there's places you can donate and stuff online as well, because there was crazy floods here in Australia for those in America and around the world watching this that don't know about it. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for giving your opinion on Big Ramy versus Nick Walker. Do you think Nick Walker can win the 2022 Mr Olympia and shock the world like Ronnie Coleman did in 1998? Like I suppose you say, even like Dorian Yates when he came on the scene and came second to Lee Haney at the Mr Olympia, when Jay Cutler shocked everyone at the 01 Olympia. There's a whole bunch of them, and we all say this can't happen and that can't happen, but crazy things sometimes do happen at the Mr Olympia. And Jeremy Yanowitz said, "What on earth are you doing in Tasmania, bro?" I grew up in Tasmania, so have family, have small kids, and all that sort of stuff. I was in WA, in Perth. Anyway, guys, that's it. He's eating the best cheese in the world, I'm sure. Yeah, we have amazing cheese down here. Anyway, guys, that's it for this episode of Desktop Bodybuilding. Who wins? Let me know in the comments. I will actually I will pull up, actually, before I wrap this up. Might make a sound for a second here, guys, because it might play my own audio back to me, but I will pause that. There is a poll result that is up. Who wins, Big Ramy or Nick Walker at the 2022 Mr Olympia? 83% say Big Ramy, 17% say Nick Walker, 104 votes. Thank you guys for participating on that. It is much appreciated. Anyway, guys, that's it for me. For Xavier Wills, Desktop Bodybuilding, subscribe, hit the notification bell button, all that good stuff. It is much appreciated. Xavier Wills, Desktop Bodybuilding. We are out.